Before we move on to the corporate culture and how it affects reproduction, sex, money, and control, etc., let's talk about love. Imagine love as a light switch that can be turned off and on. Well, wouldn't that be superficial? Why couldn't you always move in the spirit of love that allows for it to be directed a certain way? That's the true nature of love. Love is like the Spirit of God that can be directed to your significant other. So you have to be in the Logos to have love versus psychology and affection. There's many proofs that stick out to us in this regard. Number one is that people have a high divorce rate in the West, especially in America. Now, how often do you think people think they're in love when they get married? Number two is the amount of gold diggers we have in society. We kind of see this, well, they're getting married for the wrong reason. Also, we see that psychology, and psychologists have attempted to describe love in terms of how the other person makes you feel and not some kind of a spirit. So obviously, what most people believe is love is not. If you read between the lines, there's got to be a large group of people who aren't in love with their husband or wife and decided for other reasons, like the kids or something, to stay with them. So let's think about mind control, torture, and psychology to combat Christianity. Why did the churches used to torture people? Why did they used to use psychology? And then after they're done, after they made them recant, they would burn them at the stake anyway. Doesn't the Bible teach that Jesus forgives you? So if you recant and you profess your love for Christ, there's no need to burn the person at the stake unless you're doing experiments on them, psychological experiments. And you don't want them to reveal this to the general public, so then you kill them. All right. So when you think about MK Ultra, they have drugs that made it difficult to do physical activity. It was one of the main reasons on record. Court transcripts and so on prove that definitively. COINTELPRO, just Google it. The purpose was to prevent the rise of a black messiah, and they had some kind of a document that said just that, almost those exact words, to prevent the rise of a black messiah. Number three, mind war, to isolate potential allies in every community on record. Michael Aquino's Mind War, this is very key. It is published after MK Ultra. So we see this continuity, right? Make it so the martial artists have difficulty doing physical activity in the rise of MK Ultra after World War II. COINTELPRO, the Panthers and them, right, prevent the rise of a black messiah. And the Mind War, you know, and it was published in like 2006 or something, or, you know, certainly after MK Ultra, to isolate the allies in every community. So obviously we know that black people are the most diverse, you know, the most diverse continent, perhaps the most rebellious race. So they had a partially defined social order. Then we see the, you know, Mexican community used against them. And then the resulting social orders, you know, the Asian corporate societies, different societies that they have, different orders that they have, community centers, different ways that they brought the community under their control and auspices. So every community has a well-defined order, but the black community, which has a partially defined order. When you look at government harassment, specifically gang stalking, we see that women are disproportionately targeted, and so are blacks. Okay? The women is highlighted more than the blacks part for whatever reason, and it's white people that present these statistics, and it's hard to say what their belief system is and what their motives are, but certainly they seem control. Certainly from what I've seen on YouTube and otherwise, we see a ridiculous amount of black targets. Okay? So, and then of course there are people who claim to be targeted who aren't, who can easily, you know, twist the statistics, you know, throw off the statistics. So the black people are the most rebellious people, the least defined, you know, they don't have a well-defined social order compared to every other group in their community. And the women, the most emotional demographic perhaps, the old, I hate you, I'm going to expose this whole thing, I can't stand you, you cheated on me, or you did something to piss her off, right? Hell hath no fury like a woman, right? So now we have to find a way to get that fury under control. And that goes back to this. Wars and culture are about reproduction, sex, money, and control. When one group in a time and place gains the upper hand, they take pleasure in feeding on the terror and desperation of another as they rape them. All forms of fetish-based rape and coerced sex takes place. Governments wage war on their political opposition in the general populations in a similar way. Over the years, corporations and war profiteer groups have turned to sexual profiteering as opportunists making and or taking the opportunity to prey on the population with their crazed sexual energy and variations of myth and dark psychology-based sexual fetishes. Think about what I mean by that. Over time, it changes the population and they compete with each other over who can sexually satisfy their oppressors better, including going along with the culture to that effect. The governing class and those in power love the created enemy to prey on the damsel in distress as a sort of con hero. Look at the Greek myths. So man's greatest obstacle becomes psychological control and any other mental health perspective that complements it. Placing thoughts in the brain before they come to the front of one's mind is a recurring theme, and it's well researched. Popular Science, I believe, has articles about reading the mind, and it's not only feasible, but it's the abundance of evidence and the types of people presenting the evidence certainly more than just suggests that this is the case. Synthetic telepathy is another way to talk to somebody. So you can put their thoughts in the mind before they come to the front of the mind, so the person can think that their thoughts, that the thoughts that are put in their mind are actually their own. Synthetic telepathy, to coerce and to, direct. Stimulating, triggering parts of the mind, triggering parts of the brain that cause someone to respond in favorable ways, plus drugs and frequencies that induce suggestibility and other favorable mind states. A bad tree cannot produce good fruit. Think about eugenics to screen out the genes of the light temple. Okay, so the pre-existing divine order, divine intervention, sensitivity to change and spirit emotion. And I'm out of time, so let me just wrap it up here.